Hey there, welcome to Shear-Attack Tools. Today we're installing our OEM size spiral cutter head for the DeWalt DW735 13-inch planer. This cutter head has 40 carbide inserts, which are included along with the installation tools and some spare parts if needed. The tools we'll be using today are the DeWalt and Shear-Attack tool, cross screwdriver, a 5/32 and 3/16 Allen wrench, a 6mm, 5/16 and 1/2 inch socket, a 9/16 wrench, bearing remover, some snap ring pliers, torque wrench, some spare wood, and general workshop tools. Make sure to get your snap ring pliers, bearing removers, and torque wrenches at www.shearattack.com. Firstly, take off the top cover by unscrewing its 4 screws. Then get those 3 red thumb screws out. After that, the cutter head cover will be free, which you will have to rotate a little bit and then pull towards yourself. There are guides right about here which can tell you how to do so. Now, make sure you take off this bracket and disengage the gearbox shaft from the speed control. This will be important for removing the gearbox later. Of course, put the bracket and its screws somewhere safe. Locate the lock plate, unscrew it, and set it aside. This part won't be installed back into the planer and won't affect its function in any way, so there's no need to worry. Let's move to the front of the machine. Unscrew the wheel and then take the front plate off by unscrewing its 4 screws. When you have it open, disengage the spring and take the idler shaft out. Grab your 5/32 Allen wrench and unscrew the sprockets. Then take both of them out at the same time and put them face down, just to remember the way you took them out. Now that the cutter head rotates freely, take off its screws carefully. After you're done, use the magnets in the DeWalt tool to take off the blade cover and then the blade out. Repeat this for the rest of the blades. Go back to the front and work the belt off the pulley. This is a bit tricky, but to do this, focus on offsetting the belt tooth by tooth and applying pressure away from the pulley. When you have the belt off, use the 5/16 socket on your wrench to get the nut out. You can stick some wood in between the cutter head and the machine to constrain it. Grab your bearing remover and your 9/16 wrench to take off the pulley. When it comes off, make sure to take off the washer and the key. Keep in mind that the washer might be hard to remove, so just put them somewhere you won't forget. With your big snap ring pliers, take off the snap ring on the bearing seat and put it somewhere you will remember. Now turn to the back of the machine and take the back cover out by unscrewing its 3 screws. After removing the back cover, take your small snap ring pliers and take out the snap rings from the sprockets. Place them somewhere you won't forget. Then disengage the spring and loosen the idler shaft, but don't take it out. Next, take out the sprockets as you did in the front, but keep note of the way you took them off. Take your 3/16 Allen wrench and take off the 3 screws holding the gearbox in place. Make sure the gearbox shaft is disengaged from the speed control as we checked previously, and that the bracket is off. When the gearbox is out, it should look a bit more like this. You can now pull the gearbox out, but don't do it all the way. Make sure to get the pin gear loose as well with a 6mm socket and a technique we used before, which means put some spare wood in between the cutter head and the machine to constrain it. Then use your 1/2 inch socket and mallet to drive the cutter head out. It'll be ready when the pin gear is resting on the bearing seat. Then pull the cutter head out of the planer. Do your best to keep the planer concentric with the exits. When it's out, take off the pin gear. Now attach the pin gear to your new cutter head. Now feed the cutter head through the front of the machine and focus on keeping the bearings concentric with their seats. can use a mallet to drive the cutter head the rest of the way, but don't drive it farther than you have to. The cutter head should look like this. Before attaching the carbide inserts, we'll do a partial reassembly of the planer. Reattach the snap ring, then the washer, the key, and then place the pulley on. To tighten the nut, you can use the technique we used before by placing some wood in between the machine and the cutter head to constrain it. Work the belt back on the pulley by applying pressure and doing it tooth by tooth as we did in the previous step. Make sure the belt is sitting perfectly on both pulleys. Place the idler shaft back on, tighten it, and engage it to the spring. Put the sprockets back on the way you took them out, screw them on. We are now going to install the carbide inserts. It's very important to install them properly because if we don't, our results won't be optimal and the inserts might shatter. Follow these steps. Place the carbide insert face down on the cutter head seat. Screw it down, but keep it loose. Push down on it against the cutter head and then towards its seat, which is opposite to the cutting direction. As you hold this pressure in both directions, screw it until it holds. Then take your torque wrench and use the appropriate amount of torque to tighten it. Then repeat this for the rest of the carbide inserts. After all the inserts are installed, we'll begin the final reassembly of the machine. Make sure the pin gear is tight, and re-engage the gearbox shaft into the speed control and reattach the bracket you took out earlier. Push the gearbox back on and screw it on. Engage the spring with the idler shaft and place the sprockets back the way you took them out. Then put the snap rings back on and then you can put the back cover on again. Then go to the front. You can screw the front cover back on and then the wheel. Now simply put the cutter head cover on, and the 3 thumb screws, and finally the top cover. Now you're done. Now let's see how the planer performs. We can see the surface is great. It's the usual shear tack consistency. Here we can see all the waste. Watch out for the chips as they're sharp. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.